We're all excited about this show, this film, this show, this film. Today we're going to take a look at the good, the bad, and the ugly of their VFX.
Being a Hulk asks for balance.
I mean, Hulk looks good.
See, it's like that wider shot. It's pretty good. She Hulk herself.
Something about her still looks a little cheesy though, compared to Hulk. It seems like there's a lot more like detail in the skin on Hulk than there is on She-Hulk. She's like a lot more like, you know, smooth and stuff.
That's good.
Well, I think some of it might come down to time does factor into it, because really they've had 10 years to develop Hulk since the Incredible Hulk. They can give him stubble, they can accentuate his pores. That's going to make him look more realistic than if he just had a completely smooth face.
Just that one scene at least, I think looks a little bit better than the original trailer. We can kind of compare them really quick. So this is the first clip they ever showed. Like that scene that we just saw, it looks so fake. And then that one looks a little bit better. I just think it's unfinished VFX, like not the final pass.
I think the thing that kind of pulled me out of it was the hair. It doesn't feel real. And I don't know if it's just because it hasn't been fully rendered to where it has a lot of hair physics. It almost just felt like it was a helmet she was wearing.
Like a Lego hair or something.
That is incredibly, really bad compositing. That lighting is terrible on her versus the environment around her. That shadow on the bottom of the arm is way too dark.
So when she was like picking up the drink, it looked almost like Pixar. It was very cartoonish. And everybody should have learned their lesson from Sonic. Don't drop incomplete stuff on fandoms because they will roast you alive.
I'm very excited about this movie.
No woman, no cry. Friends we've lost.
That looks beautiful.
Everything's gonna be
No notes.
Yeah, I mean, compared to like Marvel TV shows and stuff like that, I mean, their movies are just so much better.
Even the underwater stuff looked fairly good. Like that stuff's hard to do.
The whales were cool.
The only like thing that kind of stood out was the ship flying. It's not even that bad. And then the fire when it goes around her.
The heat emanating up in the top left, warbling, is just a little too much for me. And then the only other thing that really stood out to me, it was a really quick moment when they were jumping into the water. That just looks composited. There's something about the color and the shadow contrast. It's not like it's terrible or anything though.
If you look at the sky, it's very cloudy, right? So then that would diffuse the sunlight and make it a softer light.
But other than that, I thought it was really well done.
Whoa, that looked kind of bad. Like when they show CGI, you can tell it's CGI, right? Like it's not realistic.
They have that in a lot of Star Wars films, though.
At this point, I think that's kind of a hallmark that we all expect.
I think what looks weird is the hole in the tower to his right. It doesn't actually look like we're looking through it. But I think if they had angled it to where you're looking down the street rather than just on a random cluster of buildings, I think it would have given a little bit more depth into that part of the shot, and it would have made it look more realistic.
My issue is, it looks like maybe it's not even like color matched properly, but also there's a lot more detail in him than there is anything else in that shot. I mean, it literally looks like they took a background and slapped it on, like almost like a picture.
The architecture of that spire, that tower that he's standing in, does not match the rest of the environment, in my opinion.
That too.
Yeah.
A brick structure than futuristic buildings.
I look at this and I picture James Bond fighting in some European city, not Star Wars.
Also, that guy looks like Zac Efron. Is that actually Zac Efron?
Dude, no, it's not, but it's the first thing that popped in my head.
I want to get an opinion from the Senate chamber. It looks overdone, but at the same time, I don't mind because I expect this in newer Star Wars.
That looks traditional Star Wars.
Yeah, which is weird because now, like, everything going forward from that and the sequels and all that, we kind of think of that as traditional.
That's not even really CGI. That's like miniatures and things. The original Star Wars is completely different. They use miniatures to an extent in the prequels as well. Like there's the pod racing scene where they actually used Q-tips painted.
Yep. I remember
for
that.
the crowd and stuff. That blows my mind that they were able to pull that off with that many Q-tips.
As a Star Wars fan, nothing about this takes me out of the immersion.
Outside of the guy hammering, that's the only thing that takes me out. Everything else looks Star Warsy. It's not like with Obi-Wan, like there was just bad CGI in that one, period. I don't see that in this yet, but this is just the trailer.
We thought the war, at last, was ended.
So the first time they showed like the logo reveal or whatever, everyone thought it was fake, or like CGI or bad CGI or whatever, but it was actual like practical effects. And for some reason our brain thought it was bad CGI.
We thought our light would never dim.
The skies.
That boat was very fake.
It is here, Galadriel. The moment we feared.
Evil does not sleep.
Particles.
Those particles did not look like the real petals.
Not at all. Yeah.
They just looked at round particles.
Looks like they're doing a lot of practical stuff in this. That did not look good at all.
And the shadow will not find you.
Eventually, one or the other must surely break.
Okay, before we get into anything else, I just want to say, inject that straight into my veins, please. I'm so excited about this.
I think it's kind of like the Star Wars one where there's things you expect from them, like the wide angle shots in like the dungeony areas that like kind of look fake, and it's just kind of like one of their signature things, even though it doesn't look great to your eye. Like you just kind of accept it as being like, oh yeah, that's Lord of the Rings.
So I guess the first thing that everybody noticed was the boat.
There was no texture to that boat.
That was like make things so smooth you don't believe that they're real is like kind of part of the thing, but that does look too fake to me.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the elvish kind of like aesthetic, right?
It is kind of consistent with things like Rivendell in the original trilogy. It didn't pull me out. The water, I think, is messing with me, though.
Very
Looks
soft.
streaky.
Yeah, I could forgive the boat if it weren't for the water.
I thought this ball effect right here was actually pretty good. It didn't look super CGI, but now that we've stopped it, it kind of looks weird. I don't know what's going on here.
Well, when she touches it and it starts to break, it breaks into like a vision. So we go from like looking at this ball into like her mind.
Let's look at these particles again real quick. They're literally just round particle effects.
But then in this shot, those are real.
Right. You go from like just round particles to now actual like someone dropping petals down on people. The advantage that Lord of the Rings has over Star Wars or Marvel or anything like that is like a lot of their stuff can be done practically, with just like people in suits. Like a lot of the goblins and things like that, they look good because it's just prosthetic. It's not actual like VFX. I'm sure they've used VFX to enhance them and everything.
I think that was a huge strength of the trilogy when it first came out. This is consistent with that. Like nothing is striking me as like a huge departure from the originals. And just to kind of reference Star Wars, like for what we did earlier, the prequels when they first came out is that, something like 30 years had elapsed in terms of VFX and CGI, and it was just so jarring. And there's not that kind of time departure here, but also like they still don't have the need to do as much CGI. They can rely on practical effects. So it's striking me as really consistent. And like I said before, I'm pretty stoked about this.
I think you should always finish with the Balrog.